So when we, like in a retreat, when we first skim off the surface and we take away the surface questions, it might take a couple of days to finish the mind's yes buts.
Right.
And then, boom, when there's no more yes buts left, there is this like this letting go and this openness. Yes. And then from there, what's in, because I very much always include the daily life and the patterning and the yes. fears and the challenges and the difficulties and the struggles and the relationship problems, whatever it is. People might come and sit in the hot seat with me yes. and bring up this whatever, and together we will walk through an interaction that collapses that into yes. a seeing that brings that being into their own realization, their own seeing, yes. their own vroom.
Welcome to Letting Go and the Greatest Secret, where we explore the end of your suffering and the beginning of lasting happiness. I'm Hale Dwoskin, and today I'll be joined by Ananta Kranti. Ananta Kranti has dedicated her life and work to the awakening of human consciousness. She grew up in London and began traveling in 1989, finding her way to Asia and the Osho commune in Pune, India, where she explored meditation, tantra, and other spiritual practices. In 1994, she began a 2.5-year period of silence in a Zen-style retreat in Japan. Since 2000, Ananta has been guiding others to their own self-recognition through private sessions, retreats, and facilitating the integration of living truth in daily life. So let's just start out by, can you tell everyone a little bit about Ananta and what she talks about?
Mm-hmm. I would rather say that it's I don't actually talk about. Yes. It's actually like a transmission that comes through, which I just make myself available for.
Yes.
It seems to be natural. However, it's like I find if I talk about it, it doesn't quite reach. It can go to the head.
Yes, of course.
If it's like just a direct transmission from the place from which it comes, reaching to the place, the same is from where it's coming, the same as hearing it.
Yes,
directly
exactly.
Speaking to that.
Yes.
So
yes.
I find if I'm talking about, then it's like I'm trying to describe something that someone's going to imagine or get an idea about, but it will never be tasted that way. That's my experience.
Yes, I think that's accurate. The powerful thing that happens when people apparently get together is that there's a transmission or a direct response to what needs to be said, and it just happens.
I find if people are available.
Yes.
If they are inviting and they're available. Otherwise, I sit back. Yeah.
Yes. Well, there's really nothing to say anyway, so that part's easy. So what is it that speaks?
Life. Life is speaking in all the ways, all the time. Yeah, but as you know, as most of us know, humans are so conditioned to imagine themselves as separate, as an entity by themselves. and life is, my life is different from your life, you know, and take it really personally. So hearing life speak in all its ways from all its corners needs an availability of being here. Otherwise, if humans are just living in the thinking process, there really is no listening.
That's interesting, but isn't even the thinking process this?
Of course. Of course. However, when it gets patterned, identified with, and patterned and programmed, it's still this. What else can there be?
Yes, exactly.
However, it's believed to be a reality by itself, separate.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the belief.
Yeah, this all based on this. The belief is just the sense of me that seems to be distinct from you. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, and if I believe that, that becomes my reality, right?
Right, my experience.
And I'll do everything to defend that.
Yes.
You know, that's the truth for me, and
that's right.
That gets energy. Yeah.
And then to be safe, it needs to be the way others believe too. Otherwise, there's a
it's a collective unconscious agreement somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're undoing that. As far as I see, it seems that a lot of beings, humans, are undoing that belief,
Yes.
beginning to see through, and that offers new possibility in the way we live and express in this world and experience.
Yes. Yeah, and it seems to be happening spontaneously. Just like everything else.
Yeah, except that there is this incredible belief in doesn't happen unless I do it.
Right.
Well, there is a truth within that, because I, as life, need to be present to it. Otherwise, it happens differently. So that's something we could talk about, because what I find in this journey, you know, perhaps like you and many others, I've been walking this way for 25 years or more.
Yes.
And in the beginning, it was very much about pointing to the absolute, pointing to the source of everything, and bringing alive the recognition of absolute awareness, looking through every pair of eyes, the awakening of that.
Yes.
And I would say, like, well, from the moment I started sharing over 20 years ago, I was always, and I like to think that being in a female expression, I was always including very much the body life and the integration of this play and everything that arises. Whereas my partner at that time was very much absolute. There's nobody, you know. So while both are true, now I see in the time we're living in that this integrated, the transmission must be, or causes confusion unless it's really including the experience of daily life and all that arises within it, without denying that as Oh, that's just all illusion.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That can become a bypass.
Exactly.
And there's also I believe there's this common misconception that witnessing is the end.
Yeah.
But
It's the beginning, actually.
yes, exactly. Definitely. Yeah, for most people, just starting to recognize that they're not the body-mind world and all the things happening in it, there is this awareness of it. That's revolutionary for most people. Most people are just they're still completely on automatic, responding in a programmed way based on what was and what might be. And so it's a revolution to recognize that much, but it is just the beginning. Because
right.
if you go ahead.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the end. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I'm interviewing you. I'm talking too much.
No. I was enjoying that flow. I wanted to point that because somehow, even though it's just the beginning, that can also, everything can cause confusion in the language we use. So it's like people can think, oh, is this not it then? Like they have the recognition of absolute awareness looking through every pair of eyes, like there's a stopping of the
Yes.
mind, and the recognition that this is who am I? This is the only I in existence. But then if we say, oh, but this is only the beginning, and obviously I do, they're like, then the idea can come in, oh, I haven't arrived.
Right.
And it somehow, and I don't know how it was for you, but in my story, in my journey, that moment of really recognizing that and really no turning back from that, that absolute stopping, was so important. It was so absolutely recognized as everything. This is it. This is my life. Bows to that.
Yes.
It has to get that value. Otherwise, if the value is skipped over, like there's a recognition but no value of it.
Yes.
And there's a skipping over of the value, then there's still the yes, but I still got this experience, and I still got this.
Yeah.
It's such a yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. For as many expressions as there are, both expressions of the absolute emptiness and presence, that is, each one has its unique way of describing it and bringing it forth. And at the same time, there are 8 billion expressions of that same thing. Most of those expressions are not even interested or aware that there is this possibility.
Yeah.
And so the interaction is different, or can be very different. And it's all beautiful. It's all beloved.
Yeah. It's however, when an amount of humans are so deeply ingrained in identification with the program, it can be extremely suffering.
Yes.
It can be extremely painful.
No. The Buddhists, I think, the Buddhists and the Hindus had it. They don't like being called Hindus, but had it right when they talk about how life is suffering, and that's the case. The more there's identification.
Yeah, I would agree. Definitely.
So, you mentioned earlier that when we were discussing this before we started having this conversation, that you have a book. Can you tell me just a little bit about the book?
yeah, this beautiful little book, it really, I mean, I know it can sound a bit cliche, but it really happened by itself.
Yes.
Like everything does, but this was really, it really just came like the people should. So I lived in Thailand for many years, and I used to sit on my balcony and have meetings, and people would come. They were really in-depth, intensive processes. We were doing 4-day journeys, and people were joining online, and some people started to transcribe the talks.
Yes.
And then they went to the next level, they got proofread, and then somebody showed up to do the next level. And it just continued like that until someone showed up and said they could do the printing, put it together, put the cover, blah, 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 and it just really happened like that. And these are very beautiful satsangs, or whatever we want to call these true meetings, where each little chapter is started with a very deep dropping, guided dropping into the depth of being. So that's all kind of laid out in the book, that they go through this process before they start reading the chapter. So when that happens, then they are open and available with an empty mind, and they can just take the transmission that is alive, vibrating beyond the words, and yet through the vehicle of the words is coming through.
Yes.
And I have been told by many that gave me feedback, was like that it's so alive when they, and that was my experience in reading books many years ago, when I used to read, like Nisargadatta or Papaji, or books like that was so direct. It would just be like hitting and waking me up. And yeah, so it's that kind of flavor, and it's recorded talks.
That's great. What's the title of it?
What Looks Through Your Eyes.
Yeah, I like that title.
Or what is looking through your eyes?
What is looking through your eyes? Yes.
With a question mark, yeah.
It could also be said, I know this isn't your title, but it could also be described, is there someone looking through those eyes?
Yeah. It's a question that evokes a looking.
Yes.
And that's often when I, every meeting or session I always start with a very deep dropping until there's absolutely nothing in the space, full, alive, vibrating.
Yes.
And then before I invite people to open the eyes, I ask them to take a look at what is actually looking when the eyes open.
Yes.
Instead of looking at what they see, look at what is looking.
Yes.
At the object.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, how long does that deep dive take usually?
Depends how long I've got.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, do you think it'd be appropriate for you to do that for everyone who's listening now? When I'm asked to speak in this type of situation, I always try to share something that is more experiential. I mean, of course, just the conversation itself has that effect, but
I feel like interviewing you now. I feel like, what is it that you actually do?
Well, two things. One is I teach something called the Sedona Method, which was inspired by a fully realized person named Lester Levinson, and then he gave all those copyrights to me in the early 90s and said I would continue the work. And how it's evolved since then to having a very strong non-dual component.
It didn't have that before.
It did. It was always in the underpinning. He was, but the practice itself originally was just a very directed, powerful way of letting go of apparent limitation, and it still is that. It's evolved. That part has evolved too, but it's since then it's also evolved into a very powerful pointer towards non-duality. Over the past, let's see, 91 or 2.
Wow.
Is when I've been doing this since the 70s, and the method's been around since the early 70s. But the bringing in more of the non-dual component started in the early 90s.
Right.
And a lot of that, of course, is silent.
Yeah.
So, do you have meetings now? Do you meet with people? And
Yeah.
so tell me about that. Tell me what.
So so I've just arrived in England very recently, last week, and I will have a few meetings around the country, and then that are like evenings or one-day events, and then I'll have a 5-day retreat here where it's much more in depth. And my style is, I endeavor to blow the mind. So it's always in silence, and the people come in, and that's my you know, and I'm just saying this for the people listening, but all I need to do is get out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and the intention is in the space. So the only thing needed from me is to get out of the way.
Yes.
So once I sit with the beings, immediately the energy in the room, it's like it starts to come through me, and then my voice begins to speak to that. So I don't have something pre-recorded, or I have no idea what's coming, and it's in response to the energy that's in the space.
Yes.
So through that, in this awareness, there is a sensing of everything that's in the space, and the words speak directly to every aspect that's here. And I feel it in my body when there's a dropping, because it's being spoken to, it's being heard, and then they relax and let go. And that continuously happening for about 45 minutes, there's this dropping and dropping and dropping. And once I sense the dropping and enter into the vastness, then Shakti begins to arise.
Yes.
So as she begins to arise, then there is this experience of kind of bliss filling the space.
Yes.
Beauty and bliss. And then I begin to speak to that and evoke more of that.
Yes.
That's what comes through. So the room becomes more and more filled with this potency that is undeniable.
Yes.
So that speaks for itself. That is, I don't have any work to do, because that is the space that creates the space for anything and everything to then come forward and unravel within this love, within this truth, within this Sat Chit Ananda.
Yes.
And so once that's there, it's like they've dropped, because they they sense it and they experience it directly. So it's not, they already get it, that it's not something to believe from me. It's already in there. So once that's, I won't open the meeting until the room is filled with this potent aliveness. If it takes an hour, I'll go an hour. But that's I don't open the meeting until that's dominant. And of course, I feel in my body, I feel if there's mind stories and chatter going on in the heads, I speak to that. I call on that. So once it opens, then it comes by, it comes by itself. I will just meet the eyes of whoever, and it just comes so precise and so accurate and so boom and boom and boom and boom, and it's beautiful for me to actually witness the happening of that, or see how precise that is, because it's not mine. I couldn't do it.
Right.
And so once and then I've kind of spoken to the level of understanding that's in the room, the level of maturity that's in the room. Because it's a different language, right?
Yes.
It's a different language if you're sitting in a room of people who are just beginning and coming to this.
Yes.
People who've been walking this way for many, many years. It's a different language. So once that is dancing, then I will open the space and say, invite any questions or any confirmations or any sharing, and then I work one by one, but one-on-one. One.
Right.
It's very important to me that there's only one in the room, and even none but that one.
Yes.
So it never becomes a conversation. It's not a conversation. It's just the dominance is, the presence is speaking louder, and the words happen, the interactions happen within that.
Yes.
And each interaction leads to a deepening of that recognition.
Yes.
So when we, like in a retreat, when we first skim off the surface and we take away the surface questions, it might take a couple of days to finish the mind's yes buts.
Right.
And then, boom, when there's no more yes buts left, there is this, like what you were saying, like this letting go and this openness. And then from there, because I very much always include the daily life and the patterning and the fears and the challenges and the difficulties and the struggles and the relationship problems, whatever it is. People might come and sit in the hot seat with me and bring up this whatever, and together we will walk through an interaction that collapses that into a seeing that brings that being into their own realization, their own seeing, their own vroom, and then that leads to the next. And I also love to include dance. I always
what fun!
Great music on before the sessions, and people get the chance for half an hour, 45 minutes, to just really let go through the body.
Yes.
And this, after a few days, is just like full of a lot of joy, depth, recognition, and there might be deep, deep unmet trauma coming up from the basement.
Sure.
Coming out, and it's held.
Yes.
It's as if it knows this is the space that it can come out into. And I invite the whole room, everybody, to be present with this, to be the space for this, to be the loving space for this to unravel. So I just keep everybody right here being the space while that takes care of itself. in whatever way.
Mm-hmm.
And then that might trigger the next one to come out.
Yes, sometimes. Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's always been important to me from the beginning of these sharings that people don't just walk away with an expanded experience of direct realization and walk out in space and now they don't know how to deal with their life.
Yes.
It's always been really important for me to make it clear that this experience will pass, you know, and everything will all come back. And how we meet that, how we walk with that, how we face that, how we integrate. So that's always been an important part of it for me.
Oh, sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I enjoy.
Yeah, it's this. There's nothing this body mind does that's more fun than that.
Exactly. I feel very privileged.
Yes.
To hang out with beings in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It seems like now the times we're in, it's like the extremes that are happening.
Yes.
It's really it's ramping up the volume of more and more people calling for something real in this life, like what's, you know.
Definitely. And this realness is kind of the essence of what's happening, even when there seems to be turmoil.
Yeah.
There's just the dance of life.
Yeah, but if you say that to someone who's really in suffering, it's kind of you know,
yes.
Yeah. But so, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that gets said after there's been a
Yeah.
Yeah, because often if you say it first, it's not heard, and it feels like the person feels like they're not being recognized or acknowledged.
Yeah, I've had the experience the last 6 years because I lived nearly 30 years away from England.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 years ago I came back. My father was very ill.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was coming for 3 weeks, and it turned into being 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
He had dementia and he was all alone, and so I just couldn't turn away. And so I got to live in England again in a different kind of scene and thinking.
Yes.
And so I came closer to, which wasn't really in my life because I was moving in, say, spiritual circles, whatever we want to call it, or people that are all, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I was involved in family and people who just think I'm totally weird, and dealing with the social systems and carers, and really I was called to come. It was like, come here, you come and live this, like right in the midst of all that stuff, and it has a reality. I had to deal with social systems. I had to deal with all these, and family and people suffering, extreme suffering in my family. And so I had to become really close with that. And so I couldn't really you know, the distance between what my life, the way I was living, and that world, there was such a distance because it didn't touch me. But now being enmeshed in it, it was very, you know, like turning my human guts inside out.
Yes.
And I couldn't deny it. I couldn't deny those people their reality. Right. So it kind of took me, I would say, deeper in that sense to be able to also sit with people in those circles.
Yes.
So now both my parents passed a few months ago, 6 months ago. And I'm just here to clear up loose ends. And so, yeah, it's like I just wanted to acknowledge that this reality that of people in their suffering and in their very strong belief systems, I've been really like walking in the midst of that.
Yes.
You know, so it's very different when you're kind of removed, like it used to be for the gurus, and you know, in past times they'd be on the top of the mountain or wherever.
Yes.
There was a removal from the marketplace, and
yes.
I feel it's very much in these times that we are called to walk it in the marketplace. Yeah.
Yes, that's always been the case with the Sedona Method. It's all about living that there's only one life, and living in isolation or in just a exalted spiritual state can be a denial of this, whatever is apparently happening. Sometimes it could be very blissful, it sometimes could be very painful.
Yeah, and the beauty of realization, of the realization of what we are or are not,
Yes.
really doesn't it allows the pain to be actually like met in a true way and experienced directly, rather than resisted and run from and repressed.
Yes.
So, you know, a lot of people start out this search to get away from the pain, which is appropriate, and we do get away from the pain, but by meeting it fully, and we feel it even more. But that's not for a particular person. It's life itself being here.
Yes.
In all of it. So yeah, it's more and more sensitivity, more and more feeling, more and more full and rich. It does change the way we experience pain. There's no sufferer.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, do you want to do something again? If people are really showing up for this conversation, I'm sure there's already an experiential component, but if you'd like to bring something in, that would be great. So if we start it now, we'll have a few minutes afterwards to
Okay. All right.
To conclude.
Okay, so I would ask everybody to close the eyes, and then the projections of the images are not so distracting. And taking a moment to fall into the quietest, the place in you that is right now, quiet. And letting go a little deeper into that placeless place in you that is always quiet. Just like sinking down through the ocean. At the bottom of the ocean is always stillness. Regardless of waves. Regardless of the waves happening on the surface of life, at the depth of you, is stillness. Taking a moment to really rest. In what it is just to be. Without any trying. Without any effort. Just this simplicity of being as you are. And letting go a little deeper. Without any doing. Ah. noticing more and more space beginning to open. There is nothing you need to do to be aware. And with the eyes closed, maybe you could take a look to see where you end and something else begins, where any other thing begins. And if you see that there is no ending to what you are and no beginning, of any other thing, you can go on opening and opening and opening. Into vaster space. In the same moment, you are still aware of what is happening on the surface. Just like the ocean, the depth and the surface are one. And in a moment, we will begin to come back into the space, into the room, yet this that is here, this depth of being aware, doesn't go anywhere. As you begin to feel this body sitting in the chair. Its sensations and the space in which it sits can slowly move towards perhaps you can feel the oceanic beingness of what you are as you come back in the room, gently allowing the eyelids to do that magnificent thing of lifting up, opening to a world of shape, color, and objects. Taking a moment to see what it is that looks through these eyes. Mm. 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 Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a nice gift for everyone listening.
And for me too.
Yes.
That's beautiful. What we call a bird.
Yes. Will was speaking in the background.
Yeah.
Willow is often in the background when I do Zoom events, and when there's a process going on, she often gets chattier. It's her contribution.
Yeah. It's like the aliveness turns up.
Yes, yes. So thank you. This has really been lovely.
Yeah, for me too.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a website transition, but my website is www.ananta-kranti.com, and there will be links to this and that and events, and
Great.
yeah, there are events happening in England, and I also have regular Zoom calls going on.
Great.
An intimate online. Yeah. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you so much. It's been a
Lovely.
pleasure spending this time with you. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed it as much as I did. And we'll put your website in the show notes as well.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Ananta Kranti. You can learn more about Ananta at ananta-kranti.com. That's ANANTA-KRANTI.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you have immediate access to future episodes. Please give us a 5-star rating and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about my work, my mentor Lester Levinson's work, and the Sedona Method, please visit www.sedona.com. As you explore our site, you learn the key to lasting happiness, success, peace, and emotional well-being. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, go to sedona.com. That's SEDONA.com. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.